open up a dialogue is what they were asking for. This was not an outrageously extreme, like, the responses to this, everything from like, it didn't know that, you know, the Kremlin had infected the progressives of the United States, didn't know that you know, AOC is actually her acronym should be KGB, didn't know, like, I was just like, whoa, what? This was an unbelievably measured response that articulated and emphasized in far more words about how bad it is that Putin is doing what Putin is doing. You hate to see it, everyone. AOC this whole time has been a Kremlin agent. That's right. AOC is a Kremlin agent. All these people are. Look at these traitors. Look at these pro-Putin apologists. Have you seen this letter yet? Have any of you read it? It's absolutely deplorable, disgusting, the lengths to which they defended Vladimir Putin and his illegal invasion of Ukraine. I, for one, am beside myself. I knew it. Even before it was the Bears, I knew it was AOC. So the letter says, Dear Mr. President, we write with appreciation for your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. That's the first fucking line, by the way, you weirdos on the internet. Your support for the self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state has been supported by Congress, including through various appointments of the military, economic, and humanitarian aid in furtherance of this cause. Your administration's policy was critical to enable the Ukrainian people, through their courageous fighting and heroic sacrifices, to deal a historic military defeat to Russia, forcing Russia to dramatically scale back its stated goals of the invasion. Again, this kind of reads like something I feel would distinctly piss off the Jackson Hinkles and the Infrareds and the Spanky Tankies of the internet. Doesn't sound like pro-Putin apologia. I mean, sorry, apologia. I could have been misinterpreting it when I read it last night, because I was like, oh, this seems like a very measured and reasonable response and something to say. And then meanwhile, this came out and like half of fucking liberal and war hawkish neocons on Twitter were like, I have fucking traitors, Kremlin agents, every single one of them. Crucially, you achieve this while you also maintain that it's an imperative to avoid direct military conflict with Russia, which would lead us to World War III, something that we strive to prevent. The risk of nuclear weapons being used has been estimated to be higher now than at any time since the height of the Cold War. Given the catastrophic possibilities of nuclear escalation and miscalculation, which would only increase the longer this war continues, we agree with your goal of avoiding direct military conflict as an overriding national security priority. Given the destruction created by this war for Ukraine and the world, as well as the risk of catastrophic escalation, we also believe it is in the interest of Ukraine, the United States, and the world to avoid a prolonged conflict. For this reason, we urge you to pair the military and economic support of the United States that has been provided to Ukraine with a proactive diplomatic push, redoubling efforts to seek realistic frameworks for a ceasefire. This is consistent with your recognition that there's going to have to be a negotiated settlement here, and your concern that Vladimir Putin doesn't have a way out right now, and I'm trying to figure out what we have to do about that. Quoting, again, Biden. We are under no illusions regarding the difficulties involved in engaging Russia given its outrageous and illegal invasion of Ukraine and its decision to make additional illegal annexations of Ukrainian territory. However, if there's a way to end this war while preserving a free and independent Ukraine, it is America's responsibility to pursue every diplomatic avenue to support such a solution that is acceptable to the people of Ukraine. Again, defined by acceptable by the people of Ukraine, not by what the progressives of the United States want. Such a framework would presumably include incentives to end hostilities, including some form of sanction relief, and bring together the international community to establish security guarantees for a free and independent Ukraine that are acceptable for our parties, particularly Ukrainians. The alternative to diplomacy is protracted war with both its attendant certainties and catastrophic and unknowable risks. Russia's invasion has caused incalculable harm for the people of Ukraine, leading to the deaths of countless and thousands of civilians, Ukrainian soldiers, the displacement of 13 million people, while Russia's recent seizure of cities in Ukraine East have led to the most pivotal moments in the conflict and the consolidation of Russia's control over roughly 20% of Ukraine's territory. The conflict threatens an additional tens of millions more worldwide, as skyrocketing prices in wheat, fertilizer, and fuel spark acute crises in global hunger and poverty, a war that is allowed to grind on for years, potentially escalating in intensity and geographic scope, threatens to displace, kill, immiserate far more Ukrainians while causing hunger, poverty, and death around the world. The conflict has also contributed to elevated gas and food prices at home, fueling inflation and high oil prices for Americans in recent months. Economists believe that if the situation in Ukraine is stabilized, some speculative concerns driving higher fuel costs will subsidize and likely lead to a drop in world oil prices. We agree with the administration's perspective that it is not America's place to pressure Ukraine's government regarding sovereign decisions, and with the principle you have enunciated, there should be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. But as legislators responsible for the expenditure of tens of billions of dollars of U.S. tax dollars in military assistance in the conflict, we believe such involvement in this war would create a responsibility for the United States to seriously explore all possible avenues, including direct engagement with Russia, to reduce harm and support Ukraine in achieving a peaceful settlement. Open up a dialogue is what they were asking for. This was not an outrageously extreme, like, the responses to this, everything from like, it didn't know that, you know, the Kremlin had infected the progressives of the United States, didn't know that you know, AOC is actually her acronym should be KGB, didn't know, like, I was just like, whoa, what? This was an unbelievably measured response that articulated and emphasized in far more words about how bad it is that Putin is doing what Putin is doing. Like, the majority of this letter is that what Putin is doing is illegal. Putin has committed war crimes. Putin has aggressively committed illegal actions. That's what the absolute bulk of this letter says. And it has been spun around as being just like pro-Russia, pro-Kremlin, blah, blah, blah. It does not say at any point that they want to refuse arming Ukrainians or providing aid to Ukraine. It does not say at any point that Russia's invasion was not illegal or that Putin is justified in his actions. It's asking for there not to be a blank check. It's asking for there to be, yes, support and aid given to Ukrainians, while at the same time, the United States should be pursuing, as its prerogative, there to be a channel open, rather than saying the only way out of this war is the moment that Putin decides to leave, because he isn't. Putin is not deciding just to leave. And Putin, this can become a protracted war into infinity if both sides are simply going to take a position that you stop or you stop. Neither of us are going to speak to each other or have any dialogue, but it's basically going to be, we're just going to keep on going until one of us decides we're backing off entirely, in its entirety. In May, President Zelensky, despite deadlocked negotiations, reiterated that the war will only definitively end through diplomacy, and had previously explained that any mentally healthy person always chooses the diplomatic path because he or she knows, even if it is difficult, it can prevent the loss of thousands, tens of thousands, or maybe even millions of lives. In conclusion, we urge you to make a vigorous diplomatic effort in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire, engage in direct talks with Russia, explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign and independent Ukraine, and in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, seek a rapid end to the conflict and reiterate this goal for America's chief prosperity. Signed, the following traitors. The following traitors to Ukraine. Look at these. The blood is on their pens. Why didn't they use red ink? I wonder. Suspicious? Premia Jayapal, Earl Blumenauer, Cory Bush, Jesus G. Garcia, Raul Agrinjalva, Sarah Jacobs, Ro Khanna, Barbara Lee, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, Sheila Jackson Lee, Mark Pocan, Nidia M. Velasquez, Gwen S. Moore, Yvette Clark, Henry Johnson Jr., Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There it is. Traitor. The end of her signature looks like GOP. Is that a signal? Is that a secret message? A coded message, if you will? Mondaire Jones, Peter A. DeFazio, Jamal Bowman, Mary Newman, Alma S. Adams, Shali Pingree, Jamie Raskin, Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Mark Takano, Andre Carson, Donald M. Payne Jr., and Mark Desaulniers. All of them equal traitors. Traitors to America and traitors to Ukraine. Simultaneous. At the same time. Now, don't worry, everybody. Good news. It's gone. It's no more. It was released last night, and it's since been retracted, as have all the words. So, yeah. This one looks like autosign. This is, holy shit, this is 100% autosign. Good eye. I know that because sometimes I use autosign. It's just so convenient. All I gotta do is click a couple buttons, and then I don't have to, like, trying to draw your signature out with the mouse. It's not easy, okay? It's not the simplest thing. You kind of go like this. I mean, my signature would probably end up looking something like, what do we got here? Oof, this is a nice one. This one's kind of neat too. No, these are all kind of nice. It would look like a worse Cory Bush, I think. But I can still tell what Cory Bush is. Maybe, yeah, maybe Mark Pocan. Because this is gibberish. Like, I could look at this and be like, who is this? Whereas, like, Ayanna Presley's. Okay, like, I can get an idea for that. I would never know that this was AOC's. Oh, Glenn Greenwald, obviously, made a post about it yesterday. He refused to name AOC by name, which is weird. He goes after AOC all the time as both, like, he mythologizes AOC. He calls AOC, like, someone who has just, like, unfettered and untold and unchecked power, while at the same time being completely powerless and inept. So I don't know which one it is, which one, I guess it depends on where he's going to make money that day, kind of thing. But I do want to say this. He agreed with this at first, but he refused to give credit to AOC because he'll never do that, obviously. But he said, finally, good to see. They should work with the wing of the Senate and the House GOP who have been warning for the dangers of the U.S. involvement in this war from the start and the immense waste that it fosters. Like, I guess kind of okay by my standards, but still you should go work with Marjorie Taylor Greene, the anti-Semite, the one who talks about the Jewish space lasers, because she's always been against this from the very start. Yeah, she hates war. Marjorie Taylor Greene is definitely the anti-war hawk. Same with Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard hates war. Definitely hates war. Yeah. Well, I mean, depends on the war. Yeah. I mean, if it's with China or Iran, oof, yeah, no, then it's fucking, oh, then it's awesome. Al-Qaeda and any Muslim country, ooh, yeah. Oh, no, that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. She just wants there to be more war on Muslim people and Muslim countries. That's what Tulsi Gabbard's about. But no, not Russia. Stay away from Russia. Look what this bipartisan group of senators, the ones who always want more war, more weapons, expenditures, are trying to do for Ukraine, give Biden emergency powers to transfer huge sums of money to Raytheon Boeing with no safeguards. Here's a political NatSec reporter said, to his credit, can't really show stuff and really supports Biden, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, next day, new. The Progressive Caucus chair, Pramila Jayapal, says in a statement they've withdrawn their Ukraine letter. The letter was drafted several months ago, but unfortunately was released by staff without vetting. As chair of the caucus, I accept responsibility for this. They're throwing their staff under the bus. Basically. That's what they're doing here. It's like, hey, we're gonna throw our staff under the bus. That never happened. While we were drafting it, a silly staffer decided to release it before we even thought of finishing it. Our words had not finished yet. It's not done. Yeah. So there's that. You all signed it. That looks like a signed and finished and then released letter. It's kind of, I don't know, pretty sad for you to go down this road, you know? The letter was drafted several months ago, but unfortunately was relieved by staff without vetting. As chair of the caucus, I accept responsibility because of the timing. Our message is being conflated by some as being equivalent to the recent statements by Republican leader McCarthy threatening to end an aid for Ukraine if Republicans take over. The proximity of these statements created the unfortunate appearance that Democrats, who have strongly and unanimously supported and voted for every package of the military, strategic, and economic assistance to Ukrainian people, are somehow aligned with the Republicans who seek to pull the plug on American support for Zelensky and Ukrainian forces. Nothing could be further from the truth. Every war ends with diplomacy. This one will too after the Ukrainian victory. The letter sent yesterday, although restraining the basic principle, has been conflated with GOP opposition and support for Ukrainians' just defense of their national sovereignty. As such, it is a distraction at this time as we withdraw the letter. So, yeah. I will say this, though. I know right now it's now in fashion to go after progressives from both sides of the aisle. Glenn Greenwald has been tweeting about them all day. Now Crystal Ball and Breaking Points are doing their parts on it. Brianna Greyjoy is going after progressives. The thing is, I understand that AOC and progressives in the United States aren't as left or left-wing as some people would like. I know they're not as progressive as some people would like. I'm just going to tell you this. This is coming from an outsider's perspective, just observing, because I watch so much American media and American politics. I love American politics. It's fascinating. As an outsider looking in, they are the most progressive people that are in government would be those individuals, the Squad, you name it, Bernie Sanders. Those are the ones, just because they don't go far enough. I think if you were a leftist in America, your battle should be getting more in, not going after the ones you already have who aren't doing it. Because the ones you already have, they're the only ones, come certain events, say like when Israel is indiscriminately bombing Gaza to such a point that is committing war crimes that no one can stay silent on, they're the only ones who are in Congress who talk about it. They're the only ones who are in Congress who call it out for what it is. They're the only ones in Congress who use much stronger language than their counterparts. I don't see that coming from moderate Democrats all the way to corporate Democrats. No, they kind of are just status quo. Those seem to be, as far as priorities, they would be my biggest enemies. They would be my biggest targets. It would be like, well, rather than purely testing the few that we've already gotten in and trying to make their lives really hard from a leftist media perspective, why don't we knock out the rest of all of these center to center right to even right-wing Democrats and replace them, again, with more progressive people. Once the Democratic Party is filled with progressives, you can then start going after the people by ratio of the fact that they will be the least progressive as being the within the Democratic Party enemies that you should be going after. In the interim, I feel like you're consistently using your resources and power to shoot yourself in the foot. Because honestly, there's a lot of things that they do that I disagree with. There's a lot of votes that they have that I'm like, oh, why did you vote present? You had an opportunity, AOC, to have voted on that. You could have actually changed discretionary funding on the federal police budget, but you didn't. So I will call you out for that. And fair dues. Do I think a corporate Democrat in the spot of AOC would have voted further to the left than AOC would have? Do I think that if there was someone who I identified as a centrist or just a hardcore liberal or neoliberal, that they would have been voting just randomly more progressive than she would? Like, she might not be living up to your standards, but in my opinion, she's still more left than if you had someone else. I just think from a strategic standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Like, fair enough if you want to make sure that people who you vote for actually enact the policies that you want. That is something that is 100% your right, especially because you may have worked or canvassed. Then you have even more rights to be upset at someone like that. But I'm saying if you look at a broad scope, what is our strategy going forward here? What should we be doing? Would you not be specifically targeting people who are further to the right than the people that you already have in power, rather than trying to concentrate so much on them to not upend them? Like, I think the other thing that came out yesterday, and this is true, this is something that you can fairly criticize AOC for. She just went on Pod Save America, the garbage liberal institution. Now, I haven't watched it. Maybe in her appearance, she did a really good job of bringing a bunch of like progressive values to that show and being like, hey, by the way, maybe you shouldn't have tried to get Beto O'Rourke to run in that election cycle. Hey, by the way, maybe you shouldn't have done this. Hey, by the way, like, that would be great. But her going on that show, because it's one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, political podcast outside of Joe Rogan, rather than going on any single progressive TV show, streamer, YouTuber, that's true. That is a fair call out. They do not reach out to a lot of leftist media and alternative media or progressive media. That much is true. But do you not feel that there's a benefit to having someone who is, let's say, even slightly more progressive than the corporate Democrats be on giant stages? Like, get on a Netflix show and do an interview. Get on an MSNBC or an ABC or something and do an interview. Get on Pod Save America and do an interview. If they waste those interviews, fine. Criticize them because you're just wasting the opportunity. But otherwise, who else do you have that isn't already, again, a centrist Dem who gets to have those kind of platforms? If they use them properly, then that is a net benefit. If they fuck it up, then yes, the criticism is apt. I think Pod Save America is liberal trash one. Oh, did I say Pod Damn America? Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, that's my bad. Pod Damn America is fucking base. Go subscribe. They're awesome. Subscribe to Pod Damn America. Yeah, friends of the show. Pod Save America. That's what I meant to say. Pod Save America. Yeah, I got it backwards. There. Yeah. Dare I say, go on Bill Maher? Yes, I'll dare to say it. As long as you're good at communicating and you're going to do a good job there. And shout out to Jake Flores, because Jake Flores is awesome. Do you enjoy the Serfs, but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K, Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earthhuman, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Inkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.